Hey, it's Dave Brown here, host of Now with Dave Brown on AMI. Check out this latest highlight from the show.
I'm joined by Erin Riehle, the founder and senior director of Project Search. Erin, thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you, Alex. I'm delighted to be here.
So we're at the Odin Conference 2022. We're talking about the future of work. Can you tell the folks at home a bit about Project Search and what you're presenting here today?
Sure. I manage a program called Project Search, as you mentioned, and it's a worldwide program that partners with agencies, schools, and businesses to provide a really unique training opportunity for young adults with developmental disabilities so that they can gain the skills they need to transition to employment, typically after high school or secondary school.
And can you talk a bit about how this program started? I have familiarity with Project Search in Harlem Bloorview. I visited that facility in the past and saw some of the work they've done there, but how did Project Search get started originally?
Sure. It's not a sexy story, but I'm a nurse and I was the director of the emergency department at Cincinnati Children's Hospital in Cincinnati, Ohio. And I think for me, it really was a social justice issue. I was aware that we were providing a great deal of medical care to all types of people with disabilities. And yet, once they grew up or once they left the hospital, the only thing we were really allowing them to do when they came back to us was to volunteer. Despite the fact that we had over 60 training programs and we were the largest employer in Cincinnati, we'd never really intentionally included people with disabilities in any of our training programs or in our employment programs. And so I had the position power to do something about that. And so I reached out to the community. I brought together people who knew about and worked with the topic areas and had the resources to make a difference, and asked if they'd be interested in teaching me what I didn't know and working with me to create a program, which we then brought into Children's Hospital. And our first year was 25 years ago. We had 12 young adults who were 18 to 21, and they spent their entire final year of high school inside the hospital. So they were there for 9 months, Monday through Friday, and learning skills, learning how to be adult workers, and that was how it started.
Why was it important to focus on students who were still in school and reaching the end of their high school education as the target for this transition program?
That's a great question. Certainly there are lots of groups that can benefit from training, and we just happened to choose one group. I'll tell you why I think it's an important group, and that is because education's important, and the reality is for young adults with intellectual and developmental disabilities, there is a sweet spot, and that sweet spot for reading, writing, math, attendance, hygiene is probably at its highest when they are leaving high school, secondary school. And if we can catch them before they leave and get home, and then stay at home and don't work or don't do anything, we're getting them when they're reading well and they're getting up in the morning, they're used to going someplace, it's just the right time, and we don't want them to lose skills. We don't want them to fall into a habit of sleeping till till 10, so they don't want to get up early and come to work. It's a sweet spot. It definitely is. So it's really important. We also know that it's easier to fund a program if you work with a school because they have resources. And so we are all about braiding talents and resources. You know, how do you work with things that already exist and that already have the same mission and the same responsibility, rather than trying to do something and create it from the ground up? Why not work together with people who have the same mission?
Yeah, it makes total sense. And as you say too, there's that skill base that is still there, and it's still ingrained because of the routine of daily school.
Oh, you know what? You just used the perfect word, routine.
Yeah.
That is the word. And so you want to capitalize on that routine and make the best of it. Thank you for that perfect word.
And so when they are finished the program, as you mentioned, it's the final year of school that they go for the full year. What is the results that you tend to see from people who go through the Project Search program? Do they go on to meaningful employment afterwards?
Yes. We have a very high rate of employment, Alex, and but I'd be lying if I said we were perfect, because we're far from it. So, you know, it's funny. Our goal is 100%, and we don't reach it. But so last year we have a database. We measure our outcomes. We strive for 100%. We never want to take a single person into our program and fail. But last year, we got about 75% employment, and we have 700 programs. Actually, today I think we have 715 around the world, and each of those this year, coming out of COVID, had an average of 8 participants, 8 interns. I can't do the math in my head, but 715 times 8. So we serve a lot of young people. I struggle with that because that still means we have a room for a lot of improvement, and we work every day to figure out how we can be better, and because people with disabilities have amazing potential. They can be great employees. There are industries and companies out there that need employees, and we have a responsibility to make that connection. And sometimes, it's funny. I've been thinking about this a lot lately. There's this tendency on the behalf of those of us who sometimes work in the disability field. When we're not successful, we blame it on the person with the disability. They were too hard, or we didn't get enough money, or it took us too long, or they couldn't do the job, instead of saying, well, maybe I didn't figure out what I needed to do to adapt the job or find the right tools.
Yeah, and that's certainly something, as I mentioned before, that I kind of witnessed at the program at Harlem Bloorview. It's just not only given some of the other employment programs I've covered in the past, and I've seen, it's like, okay, well, there was a high success rate, but it's still that drive to get it to 100%. It's not being satisfied at 75, 80%. It's no, we want every single person to come away from this program having meaningful employment for a long-term period.
Thank you. You're so much fun to talk to. Because it isn't just a job either. We could all go out and find anybody a job bagging groceries. Let's just face it, we could do it. But most of us, including people with disabilities, don't want to bag groceries, and we don't want to wipe off tables. And people with disabilities weren't born to do the scut work that no one else wanted. And it is unfair that they are continually put into those types of jobs because it's the easiest job for us to find. And especially when their capabilities are so much greater. But we have an obligation to teach them greater skills. And we have an obligation to go out and market those skills. And you know, at Children's Hospital, we have people with Down syndrome who are sterilizing dental instruments. And we have people with Williams syndrome and cerebral palsy who are working in our central sterilization department, putting together surgical kits. Have you ever had surgery?
I have.
Okay. So I'll ask you a question. How many dirty instruments or mistakes would you want in your surgical kit?
0. I want it all 0.
Handshake on that one.
Yep.
Yeah, okay. I'm with you on that one.
Yeah.
I would not want any mistakes on my surgical kit. And you know what? If you work with a person with a disability, you're going to get 0 mistakes on your surgical kit.
Yeah.
And they are just as capable, if not more, of doing a perfect surgical kit than anyone else in that department. And they can do, people with disabilities are incredibly capable of doing really difficult things. Sometimes they need to have an aspect that is repetitive or systematic, but the things they are able to do are shockingly amazing if we just open our minds to it. We're the problem. And sorry, you got me going.
No, I know. You're clearly passionate about this, Erin. I want to hold you quickly to this one. So based on my experience from you talking about how it started with the Cincinnati Children's Hospital and my experience with the program, seeing it at Harlem Bloorview, are they all based out of healthcare centers, or are there different centers that they can be run out of?
Yeah, that's a great question. No, they are not all based at hospitals. It certainly, in the beginning, was what we knew best, and so probably 2/3 are still based in hospitals. But we have programs, I just counted, we just did a program. We have 9 programs on military bases in the United States. I wish we had some in Canada. They're great sites. We have programs on reservations. We have programs in banks, hotels, parks, museums, insurance companies, manufacturers, pharmaceutical companies. You know, we work with Dow Chemicals. We work in just about anything you can imagine.
That's phenomenal. That's really phenomenal. So, Erin, thank you so much for
taking
the time, just talking a bit about Project Search. It's a phenomenal project, and I'm sure the folks at home are going to be excited to go and check out more about it then.
Thanks so much, Alex. It was fun.
Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen. Do you want to dive into more conversations like this? Watch Now with Dave Brown weekdays at 9 a.m. Eastern on AMI-TV or download the podcasts wherever you listen.